What's going on, everybody?
I got it. Hello! How amazing is this? How blessed are we? This is amazing.
You guys look
You
absolutely
guys look amazing.
beautiful out
You
there.
look great in your Blexit shirts. I love this so much. Did you guys like that video? Yeah, it's amazing, right? So when we were talking about creating that video, I was speaking to my creative director and I said, what is the vibe of Blexit? And I said, what makes me so sad about the way that I see the media portraying black people or portraying our community is that they make it seem, they've made us more pathetic. Like when I grew up, the black community was loving, there was laughter, there was family, there was church, there was God, right?
Yes!
I remember black people being strong, right? The examples, the pillars of society. My grandfather was such a good man. He has such good morals, and he was a strong man. He was a strong man. And now we're seeing a society that wants to weaken the black man. They want to weaken the church. There's blatant anti-Christianity bias happening in our media.
Yes.
And I just don't know where it came from. So for me, I wanted Blexit to be a return to values, to restore the values in the black community, to make us realize that our enemy is not the white man. Our enemy is the mainstream media that is convincing us that we are only victims.
Yes!
And I think this is probably the most beautiful time in history for us to really stand for something, for us to really come together and unite and make sure that our voice is heard. And I tell people all the time, this is not about Democrat, Republican. This is about finding out where we want to be in this country, where we want our future to be, who's going to represent the things that we value and hold dear to our heart, and we stand by those principles. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, you stand by the principles of God, stand by the principles in which are going to make us successful.
So a big thesis that I have, and it's correct, is that the left thinks that minorities are stupid. They genuinely believe that we are stupid, that we do not do research, that we do not think, and all they have to do is plug into our emotions to inspire a reaction and to create division and to create hate in America. And you guys like this sign, by the way? Robert Francis O'Rourke is not Hispanic. I mean, what is that? Does he really think that by giving himself a name Beto, the Hispanic community is so stupid that they're gonna rally behind him? Who are other candidates? Joe Biden. Joe Biden comes out, and what does he say? Yeah, the great sign, right? He says, oh, I knew I had to step to the plate. He had to step to the plate, Brandon, because, I saw the Charlottesville attacks, the rise of the KKK, and I knew at that time that I had to step up. Reminder, Joe Biden, your mentor, best friend, and political ally was Robert Byrd, a literal Klansman. No thank you, Joe Biden. No thank you. Joe Biden champions the 3 strikes, the thing that locked up and incarcerated more black men than any president in history under Clinton. That was Joe Biden who offered that. But he's like, it's okay. Black people don't do research. They're so dumb. They're just gonna get behind me because I'm gonna say the opposite. Who else do we have as candidates? Who else in the clown show on the left do we have as candidates?
Oh man, I can't think of all the names of them, but Kamala is one another. Do y'all remember when she said, back in college, I was smoking marijuana and listening to Tupac. And Tupac didn't even have an album out when she was in college. Total fraudulence.
Yes.
And the insult. She could have said, hey, black community, I'm going to talk to you about your issues. Hey, Hispanic community, I'm going to talk to you about the issues. We're going to talk about, the plague of gun violence, black on black crime. What did she do? She offered marijuana. I mean, really think about what that says. It's an insult. They don't even want to have a conversation with us. They just think they're going to give us Beyonce. They're going to give us Jay-Z. They're going to give us celebrities, right? And we're never going to have the audacity to think for ourselves. And we have to be able to disrupt that. Who's another candidate that they have on the left?
Pocahontas.
Oh, Bernie, crazy hair Bernie.
Bernie Sanders, advocating for socialism. He's a pretty wealthy guy, right? He wants us to live the way he won't live. He flies private everywhere. He advocates for socialism. Well, socialism actually has already been tried in this country. You didn't know. They tried that via the welfare system in the black community, okay? You want to know what that did? That removed the fathers from the home. In the 1960s, the single motherhood rate in the black community was 23%. Today it is 77% because they use their welfare policies to incentivize father absence. Because you know what they know? If you break down the family, everything else falls apart. Everything else falls apart.
And they've neglected to put our young men and black strong men in positions that God has already ordained them to be in. This welfare state gives these young brothers a cop-out. Because if you don't take care of your family, you're not at home, you're not present, the government will take your position, and that's not the way we operate in our community.
That's right.
And we really need to focus on getting back to that. It is unacceptable. Young men gotta step up and do their part. It's the position that God has put us in.
Speaking of that, and speaking of fathers, and speaking of masculinity, one of the things that I speak out against all the time, and everyone should speak out against it, is the radicalization of the feminist movement, okay? It's a disaster, okay? You have these women that are wearing pink pussy hats, and they're screaming for things that they say are progressive, and yet they always lead to regressive results in the black community. First and foremost, talk about one of them, abortion, right? Right? They love murdering babies, and they say, it's our right, it's our choice. But why is it that your choice disproportionately affects black women? Right? Why is it that 17 million black babies have been aborted since 1973 and Planned Parenthood was created by an avowed racist? Margaret Sanger, and what did she say? She wanted to exterminate black people like weeds. Okay? Does the black community know that? This is the message that we have to get out, because by and large, she's been successful. Margaret Sanger's dream is becoming true right now, and this is why. Our community, the black population growth has stagnated. Our population growth is not growing right now, and the left knows that. So who are they turning to for votes? Because we're going to be irrelevant. They're not going to care about the black vote anymore. Illegals. That's right. Open the borders. Open the borders. It's incumbent upon us to open the borders. Why? Because illegal is the new black. Yes. They are going to open the borders and flood illegals in so that they have a new voting bloc that they can rely on. And they're going to socialize that community too. They're going to remove God, and they're going to remove fathers from their homes too. That is all it ever means to them. All they're ever looking for are voting mules.
And if you don't believe it, look at them trying to change the voting age. They want to change the age of 16. What's the difference between a 16 and a 14-year-old? They're both in high school, and neither one of them are adults. They're trying to change the voting age. They don't want them to be able to put whether or not you're illegal or legal on the Census Bureau. Why not? They think that we're so dumb and not capable of functioning in society that we can't even get an identification. So they want to remove identification from a requirement to vote, which is asinine to me. How in the world, think about this, they call it racism and that it's prejudice or disenfranchising African American people. I've never heard them saying that going to the store and buying alcohol was disenfranchising black people because you have to use an ID. You have to fly with an ID. You open a bank account with an ID. You have to get into almost every venue you go to with an identification. And they consistently lie. We are functioning, productive people in this country. We can get IDs. We don't need none of your handouts. All we need is an opportunity for you to get out the way and let us succeed.
And let's talk about that. Because what an insult. The black community is too stupid to figure out how to get identification. And as you mentioned, there's literally nothing you can do in society without ID. So here's the irony and here's the hypocrisy. Because the left is always hypocritical. You just have to wait 5 seconds and they'll be saying and doing the opposite of what they said 5 seconds ago, okay? So they say the black community is too stupid to figure out how to get identification. But now they're advocating for reparations because what? They figured that we can't get our paperwork together to get an ID, but we're going to be able to prove our ancestral ties to slavery, right? I don't have my birth certificate, but conveniently I have this document which traces me right back to Harriet Tubman, right? It's a joke. Everything is a farce. It's a complete circus on the left, and we have to change it around because they are trying to create division. They want women to hate men. They want black people to hate white people. Give them a few hours and they're going to be launching a war between tall and short people. Just give them time. This is what the left has become.
And all they do is promise. I heard they promise without delivering. Reparations. You hear them talk about reparations. They say, well, it's time to have a conversation.
full-throated conversation, as Elizabeth Warren, who is not Native American, said.
We are done with the conversations. And I heard this guy named David Banner. I think a few people saw David Banner's rant on the internet, and I was very shocked that he said it, but he said, I don't want your hope. I want results.
Yes.
They said that Barack Obama was all about hope. He never promised anything. He said, I'll give you hope. And he gave us no hope. There's no solutions in the plans that they have for the black community. All they want to do is have conversations. All they want to do is sell you a myth, sell you a dream. It's time for us to really have tangible evidence. And I feel like that this administration has done a lot of that. Tangible evidence about what are you doing for the community.
Yes.
When you leave office, can we go back and look at a document that says you have done something effectively for the black community?
Couldn't agree more. People ask me all the time, how could you possibly support this president? Give me one reason why I shouldn't support this president. They can never give me one. We have record low unemployment for women. We have record low unemployment in the entire nation for black Americans, for Hispanic Americans, for women. Why shouldn't I support this president? Because he's white? Is that really? They think that we're so stupid? Well, we gave you guys a black guy for 8 years who came from Chicago, right? Fixed nothing in Chicago the entire time that he was there. More black men died on the south side of Chicago than men that died in the Iraq War. The numbers are parallel. It's a literal war zone, these urban communities, and they never talk about that. They'll have a full-throated conversation about reparations, but they're never going to talk about the urban communities. Do you want to know why? Because they created that. That is the literal plantation that they created. And it's time to change it around.
And they also want to have a full-throated conversation about this gun laws, right? But they only talk about these shootings that happen in urban areas, not say urban areas, but out in white communities. It's only ones they talk about. They get a person or two gets killed and a one rogue person. They talk about it all day long on the television. But we have mass shootings every day in our communities. When are they going to start addressing the issues in our communities reference to gun laws? And the thing about it is that they want to talk about AR-15s, and this is how they're so disingenuous. They want to talk about removing AR-15s, but most of the gun crimes that happen in this country happen with handguns. Most of the young brothers that's dying in the hood, they're not dying from AR-15s, they're dying from handguns. So if they really cared about gun violence, if they really cared about doing something, they will address issues around handguns. And I'll tell you this, in the communities, what we have seen time and time again is them blaming the guns and not blaming the circumstances. They're blaming the guns and not blaming the fact that these young people don't have enough help to get their minds straight. The hatred that has been building in the communities because of their policies. They want to divert you to a gun, but they don't want to divert you to the policies that are creating this madness in the community, and it's being perpetuated, and they don't want to do nothing about it.
They don't want you to know that the black youth and the Hispanic youth and all youth, when you remove the father from the homes, they run to the streets. They will go pursue that fraternity elsewhere. This is why I will never allow radical feminists to dehumanize men, to pretend masculinity is wrong, to pretend being a man is wrong. We have a lot of really exciting conversations to have with you before Brandon and I just go into a massive rant.
We'll do it.
The first voice is such an important person. When I first came across his book,